Welcome to the Clear Brand Marketing Podcast, where we take the mystery out of marketing and help you get more leads and sales with a clear brand and proven marketing tactics. I'm your host, Alexander. And today I'm talking to Julia Menez. So you help folks use their credit card points to go on some pretty cool trips. Why don't you start by telling me more about what you do so that our listeners understand, and then we'll have a fun conversation around. This is kind of outside of what we would normally talk about. Normally it's like marketing and business, but today's gonna be like fun. Like, how do you live the life that the business is you've earned with it? So why don't we start with, tell me what you do.
Yeah, we will definitely loop in some marketing business insights as well. But yeah, so a lot of your listeners might be entrepreneurs or high cash flow individuals where they've heard that they can use credit card points and travel for nearly free. But then they start Googling this and there's this maze of blogs and kind of outdated advice and stuff that doesn't even really seem to work for them, where they're following a lot of people on Instagram who talk about travel hacking and points and miles, and they're opening all the best credit cards whenever they Google best credit cards to do this. So they've got those credit cards and they're trying to follow the directions they're seeing online, but for whatever reason, they still can't get themselves into business class for very good deals by using their points. Nothing just seems to line up with what they're trying to do. So that's what we help with. What I do is I help those business owners and high cash flow individuals to unlock some premium international experiences and products and get lay flat seats in business class and first class, and getting to have all sorts of luxury, unforgettable experiences with their families without having to change up how much they're spending or how they're spending money in their day-to-day life or their business. And we do all of this using my business class blueprint.
All right. So paint a picture for me for what this, what these experiences look like when you're leveraging your points correctly.
Yeah. So for example, my husband and I just went on a trip to Australia and Japan. Still a little bit jet lagged, but we flew American Airlines flagship business class over the ocean from Las Vegas through Los Angeles into Sydney, into Melbourne, lay flat seats across the Pacific Ocean. So that way you're not cramped for whatever that flight was, 16 hours, and you get to lay in a lay flat bed. They give you food on real plates with real forks before the flight. You get access to a lounge, so you get all sorts of free food there. When we were flying this, we had access to the Qantas first class lounge in Los Angeles airport. So not only do they have free food, it's not even a buffet style. It's like a restaurant where you sit down and they take your order and it's all just included in the price of your ticket. Some airlines are fancier than others. So we'll talk about first class versus business class and different experiences like Emirates or Singapore Airlines, where they give you pajamas. They give you these amenity kits that have Bulgari perfume. They give you champagne or caviar. And we're talking like Dom Perignon champagne or Krug champagne or the $300 rare brand champagne. So it can go from business class, which is about functionality, and I have to be well rested and ready to go for business meetings once I land in a different continent, all the way up to just crazy, bougie, fancy experiences in the sky.
So you mentioned the difference between first class and business class. Tell me about that.
Yes. So we tend to fly business class most of the time. It is exponentially more difficult to find business class deals versus economy deals, and also exponentially more difficult to find first class versus business class. I tend to think that business class is the sweet spot because most people still just haven't even flown business class over the ocean. And so even just that step is incredible. You get to lay down like on a bed. Your chair folds down in a bed. You can stretch out. You have so much storage around you. The ratio, obviously, of passengers to flight attendants is going to be so much lower. They'll give you basic amenity kits with usually lotions and moisturizers. You'll get access to the lounge beforehand. And then what they're really, really optimizing for is all those business class travelers who are CEOs or maybe marketing executives who need to go to a meeting or a conference abroad. And if you're flying between the US and Europe, you can't just land there and be like, oh my God, I was just on an 8-hour flight in economy, super squished. I can't feel my knees. And now I have to give this sales presentation. That's probably not going to happen very successfully. So they really optimize for making sure you're well fed, well rested, and you have priority boarding. So it's pretty efficient to get your work done, and you have room to like spread out with your laptop and everything before landing from your flight. So that's what business class really optimizes for. And I think it's fantastic for what most people are trying to do. If you want to get really, really luxurious with first class, this is where it's like luxury beyond reason in a lot of ways, where the menu, it's just, let's see how fancy we can get. Let's get all sorts of caviar in here. Let's get the most expensive champagne. Let's partner with all of the luxury brands that you would normally find on Rodeo Drive or the Dubai Mall, or all of the most luxurious designer products that you can find. That is what they're really going for with the first class products, like the Etihad Apartments, the Emirates First Class, Game Changer, the Singapore Suites. They have different names for all of these products too.
So they both, I mean, it sounds like the space is similar. They both kind of lay flat seats, and the different ratio of first flight attendants to people, but first class is just going way beyond.
The amount of room that you have is quite different. So imagine you have like an economy seat. You know how much room you have. In a business class seat, you have your little pod. So you probably don't have too much more than like an arm's length. You probably don't have a full wingspan side to side, but then you can lay flat. So you have a lot more leg room. With first class, like in the Singapore Suites, you have your own room, and you can actually take down the wall between you and the next room if you are traveling with someone, and you get like a double bed in the sky. So imagine a full-size bed, but on a plane. And then you have a separate bed and chair. So you have a chair, you have some space to like yoga in the sky, and then you have your bed, and then the other person's bed, and then their yoga space, and then their chair, all like within the same first class kind of suite. And then with Etihad Apartments, it's very similar, where you have a chair and then you have a separate bench. It can fold down. You can take down half of the wall and then see the person next to you. With Cathay Pacific First Class, you can join the person you're traveling with in their pod, not for sleeping, but for dining, where they can fold down a table, and then it's like two people eating at the same table, so you can have dinner together facing each other. So there is a lot more room in a first class seat versus a business class seat.
That's great clarification. I haven't been across the ocean in over 10 years. And I was living a different life back then, and now I've got a kid. Can you take kids in business and first class?
You absolutely can. And there are even different products like Air France, KLM, Flying Blue, their program. You actually get 25% off of the points price if you're booking for a kid who is between the ages of 2 and 12. And below that, you just have to pay the lap infant fee if they're going to be a lap infant. If you are traveling with children, Air Canada probably has the most generous of lap infant fees. I think it's only 25 Canadian dollars to bring a lap infant, which is like less than 20 US dollars. So that's pretty incredible. And I have to imagine, I don't have kids, but I have to imagine if you are traveling with children, it just makes a world of difference that you can spread out and they can set up their little toys everywhere. You're not both all just cramped up in the same economy seat. And with more help as far as flight attendants for each passenger, they can help take care of a lot of those things for you as well, and be like, do we need to get any more snacks for your children? Do they need anything? A lot of airlines are very, very accommodating for children as well. That's
awesome. Yeah, I don't like traveling very much in general. I love going to the place, but thinking about traveling with a kid, this seems like the way to do it. So tell me what are we looking at if we were just going to pay cash for a business or a first class? You just went to Australia. Did you say Australia or Japan?
Both. We went into Australia and then we flew from Australia to Japan, and then we flew from Japan back to the United States. With all of our business class flights, because all of those segments were in business class, and then with all of our hotel stays covered with points as well. If we paid for all of that out of cash, I think it would have been close to $30,000 for two people, possibly a little bit more. I haven't fully priced out everything, but yeah, $30,000 for 3 flight segments, 2 people, plus about 10 or 12 nights in some luxury hotel rooms.
And did you get the hotel with points as well?
We do. Yes. So not everything is completely free. I think that's another common misconception that people have when they learn about points and miles. We get about 90% off. So over the course of a year, my husband and I average 3 big international trips like this per year. We have a travel budget of about $10,000 or a little bit more than $10,000 that we end up spending out of pocket. And if you were to look at the total retail value of everything that we book, it's over $100,000 per year for all of the business class flights, first class flights, hotels that we get covered in points. So it's approximately $100,000 per year for 90% off by leveraging our points well.
This is a game changer. I mean,
It
so you're
really
talking,
is.
you go from basically 30 grand a trip is what kind of I'm hearing. So 100 grand for the year to 10 grand that you're paying for all 3 trips.
Correct.
For you and your
$10,000 out of, yes, $10,000 out of pocket. And that's because a lot of these airline tickets, they'll still charge taxes and fees. So even if you're booking business class or first class with points, you could be paying anywhere from $5.60 in taxes and fees for the American-based ones to probably $300 or so for most flights. I think average for taxes and fees is $200 to $300, depending on the airline you book. London flights tend to be very expensive. Those can be $700 or $1,000 per person one way in taxes. But yes, for my husband and I, over the course of the year, we'll spend about $10,000 in taxes and fees. And sometimes the hotels will just not be a good points deal, but it's somewhere where we want to stay. So we'll just pay for the hotel out of pocket.
All right. Okay. So how do you rack up all these points?
There are a few different ways. And since most of your audience are business owners or high cash flow individuals, they're at a huge advantage, because if you can just take the amount of money that you are normally spending on your business you have a lot of marketing people, obviously, in your audience. So if you're spending money on ads, you can earn so many points just by doing that. I use the Amex Business Gold. It gets 4 points per dollar on ad spend. The Chase Inc. Business Preferred gets 3 points per dollar on ad spend. And then tax payments, you can put those on credit cards, earn a lot of points on that. A lot of sign-up bonuses that you can get with that as well. Software subscriptions, just anything that you're putting,
so you're putting the
on
whole
your
business on, is it all on one business credit card so that you're kind of just maxing that one out, or you have multiple cards?
I have multiple cards. Most people will have multiple cards because different credit cards are better for different expense categories. So I buy a lot of flights for myself, not just for all of these trips that look good on my Instagram, but also for conferences and speaking gigs and things like that. So Amex Business Platinum gets me 5 points per dollar on flights booked directly with airlines. We talked about the Amex Business Gold, which gets me 4 points per dollar on ads. I have a Capital One Venture X for business. That one's good for miscellaneous spend because it just gets a flat 2 points per dollar everywhere. So depending on what you're spending money on, that will help to shape which credit cards you want to add into your plan.
So then how you're going to have to combine them in order to go on one of these trips, right? How do you combine all those points?
So you don't want to juggle too many different pots. That's a common problem that people run into is they're like, well, now I have some Chase points, some Amex points, some Capital One points, some Hilton points, some Marriott points, some Hyatt points, some Air Canada, some British Airways, because I heard all of these different deals on Instagram and YouTube. And so now I got points in each of these. That's actually not what you want to do. If you can just get a lot of Amex points, a lot of Chase points, a lot of Capital One points, things like that, where they're credit card points rather than airline specific points, those are going to be much more useful because we'll talk about transfer partners and how you can spread them to a bunch of different airlines and have more options for deals that way.
So this isn't like Delta, like a Delta. I had an Amex Delta specific card for a little bit. So you're saying it's not that. It's just step one is get cards that provide points, and travel is one of the benefits. Is that what you're saying, or is it like specifically get like the Delta Gold card, like what I had, or whatever it was?
Do not get the Delta Gold card.
Okay.
So we're talking more like the Chase Sapphire, Chase Ink, Amex Platinum, Amex Gold, Capital One Venture, the ones where it can transfer to a lot of different airlines. That's actually not step one. Step one would be to work backwards. So instead of thinking about, okay, what kind of cards should I get? Think about how you want to use these. So do you want to prioritize hotels or airlines? Is there a specific place you want to go? So I would say step one is just figure out what you want to do with these points in the first place once you have them. Next, you want to figure out who flies there, because there might be a really good offer on Southwest Airlines credit card, but if your dream is to go to France, Southwest doesn't fly to France. So that's not going to be very useful for you. So that's step two, is to figure out, okay, who even flies these routes? Then step three is to figure out how can you book that with points. We can talk about airline alliances and how sometimes you book a good deal Sometimes we can talk about how you can book a great deal on airline A, but you're booking it through airline B. Like if you want to get a really good deal on Qatar Airways, maybe you're actually booking it through American Airlines. Or if you want to book a deal on Fiji Air, maybe you're actually booking it through Qantas. So there's this whole puzzle on step three to figure out where should you move your points. And then step four is to figure out, okay, how do I get those points, and let that determine what credit card you get. I know that sounds like a lot. So there's 4 steps
before you even arrive at which credit card should I get.
Correct. We help people with this. We do free credit card consultations at geobreezetravel.com/consultations. If anybody's listening to this and they're just like, what? No.
I mean, everybody listening to this should go and get a free consultation, because everybody who listens is a business owner. So they are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, tens of thousands of dollars a month, potentially, depending on the size, and this should totally be leveraged by every single solopreneur. And then if you have, co-owners or however you've structured it, still, this should be everybody, so go do it. So that's 4 steps to figure out which card you're going to get. And then you're putting the right expenses on each of the cards. And it sounds like kind of up to 3 so that you don't have too many. But you're also intentional about the points can all be transferred to the same place. Is that part of the strategy?
Not exactly. So,
okay. Man, I'm getting everything wrong. This is great.
No, you're fine. I've got dozens of cards, and I do not recommend that your listeners get dozens of cards. Usually starting off with 1 to 6 per year if you're just getting started in the game. 3 is very normal for your first year. So, yeah, a lot of people online are just like, look at my fan of cards. Look at my 27 cards that I've gotten. And they do that because most people make a lot of money through affiliate links where they're like, I have 27 cards. You should get 27 cards. You should use my links to get 27 cards because they're getting paid a commission for every card that you apply for. I do not recommend getting that many cards, especially for beginners. You're going to get very lost in all of it, and you're not going to be able to make the most out of every card. So start slow. Get maybe 3 cards in your first year. Go to geobreezetravel.com/consultations. We'll send you some free credit card recommendations. We don't make affiliate money on most of ours anymore because the credit card companies got mad at me. I released some tips that I guess were too juicy. So they were like, we need you to not tell people to do this. All
right.
But that was all my good content. So I was like, I don't need affiliate money. We'll be fine. So we collect referral links from our students and our people in our community. That to say, you do not need 20 different cards.
Okay. So a few, 1 to 6 is what I heard you say in there. Okay. All right. So I'm just trying to figure out how we're going to do this. Cause I ended up, I think we had 2 or 3 at one point. I was kind of trying to play the game a little bit, and I was like, I'm just going to do cash back. So I just like exited because it was a lot to think through. So I like that you do this kind of consulting, because we're definitely going to do something at some point where I don't have to think about it. So I just opted for cash back because I was like, I don't have to think about it. It's money. I can buy stuff. Great. So how do points compare to cash back?
If you were just cashing out your points the way a normal person would, it's exactly the same. So with Capital One, a normal way people would use this would be like, I got the Capital One Venture card. Jennifer Garner says I get 2 points per dollar everywhere. What's in my wallet? I'm just putting that everywhere, getting 2 points per dollar and cashing it out. So basically getting 2% cash back. That is not how you should use these cards. The best way to get a lot of value out of them is to learn about the different transfer partners and the different deals for where you can move your points. So it depends where and when you want to go. And when people are searching for deals, a very common way people search for deals is they search for flights the same way they would search for cash flights. Like on Google Flights, you'd be like, hey, I'm trying to get from Denver over to Paris on July 17. What are the best dates? Not how I would recommend doing points flights. Instead, there's what I call the business class blueprint, where you want to figure out how to get over the ocean any way that you can first within the specific time frame that you want to travel. So instead of deciding where you want to go, first determine when you can take your next vacation. Whether it's because you're really busy at work and you're like, I have to plan multiple months ahead of time, like we're going to block off this week or these 2 weeks for vacation. Set up a time block first rather than trying to figure out, okay, when's the best time to go to Paris? Just be like, where's the best European destination this week that I've called off work? So start there. And then figure out how to get over the ocean. And for you, it might not necessarily be from Denver Airport. Maybe there's a really good deal out of San Francisco or Los Angeles or Houston or Dallas. If it's in business class over the ocean and it's a good deal over to Europe, I would say go ahead and book that. And then you're going to book the positioning flight separately from Denver to wherever it was that you found that other deal. So people get very nervous for this because they're like, well, I found a really good deal from Dallas over to Paris, but I don't live in Dallas, so what do I do? At that point, it's negligible to get yourself from Denver to Dallas. It's a couple $100s per person per ticket, and you've already saved yourself multiple $1,000s by booking the Dallas to France leg on points in business class. So it's a little bit counterintuitive to how people would normally book their flights because they're like, I have to do chronological. I need to get from Denver to wherever else I need to go in the US. And then they try to book it all on one ticket as well. You're probably going to have separate bookings, one for here's the good deal over the ocean from somewhere in the United States, and then a separate domestic booking from your home airport to that major airport. You might get lucky and find something straight out of Denver. There are deals from Denver that we find over to Japan or Turkey or Switzerland. But sometimes, most of the time, like I live in Las Vegas, most of the time we're flying to Los Angeles or San Francisco and then just taking a good flight deal out of there.
And then you're doing the big leg is the main one that you're strategizing, and then you're getting to that airport. But then when you get over the ocean, you call that a positioning flight. So then you're also just kind of separately buying that one from, let's say we want to go to Greece, but the deal was from Dallas to Paris, like you're saying, and then we'd fly Paris to Greece or something like that.
If you have a very specific destination in Europe, yes, you can do positioning flights on either end. Sometimes, though, people are just like, I don't really care where we go and I'm open to suggestions. I just want to fly in business class. Where is there a good deal for the dates that we want to travel? We get a lot of clients who are like, okay, my kid's spring break is this week. Suggest where we should go because we don't even know where we want to go in Europe. And then that makes it a little bit easier to just say, okay, well, there are deals to Germany, to Poland, or to Turkey that week. Which of these 3 sounds best for you? And it helps to narrow down your options so that you're not constantly spinning being like, I can't find any deals specifically to Greece. Then maybe if you're open to other destinations and you're not really too picky on destinations, you just want to get a really good flight deal in a lay flat business class seat for your whole family, it can open up a lot of possibilities to follow the blueprint this way.
All right. So you're talking about this blueprint. Where do we get this blueprint? Is it like a downloadable PDF, or is that we've got to, go through you?
We have a YouTube video about it. So if you search YouTube for GeoBreeze Travel Blueprint, you'll find it.
Okay. Awesome. So that's what I'm going to go do after this. Great. So then where's the hotel come into this? Booking the hotel with points.
So I would book flights first because that's the harder part. Usually flight deals will sell out well before hotel deals. Once that is done.
How far in advance are we talking? Like how far do we need to be thinking out to book that flight?
Best chances of finding deals, especially if you have a family, I would book 10 to 11 months out. That is when airlines make the award seats available. And so they will sell out after about 10 months before your trip. Again, not what most normal people do. A normal person would be like, you plan trips like 5 to 8 months in advance. That's a pretty normal range to plan your vacation. But if you're into points, you plan 10 or 11 months in advance, especially if you have a lot of people in your family.
Yeah, I never claim to be a normal person. We're business owners. We think we've got to think differently in order to grow and all that. So I love that. This isn't what normal people do. Okay, totally fine. Okay, I cut you off though. You were going to talk about hotels.
Oh, but I was going to say also, if you are in that 5 month to 8 month time frame, it's not impossible. Not all deals are sold out. You might just need to be a little bit more flexible on where it is that you go. Where you're like, where can we go in 6 months? Then we will suggest okay, there's this thing to Finland, there's this one to Morocco, there's this one over to Taipei. And so if you're flexible with your destination, you can still get something booked in what we call that dead zone. That being said, the second best time to book is going to be last minute trips. So if you can book really far out, great. If you can't, last minute trips tend to work well too, especially if there's just 1 or 2 people who are traveling. And that's because a bunch of people 10 or 11 months ago booked some stuff because they're like, this is a really good deal. And then as the flight date comes, they're like, oh, I have to cancel. I can't actually make it on this great deal that I booked. So then they start canceling, and then those come back onto the market for you to book as last minute deals. And by last minute, we're talking T-minus 2 weeks from the flight date. Yep.
Okay.
So those are the 2 best times to book, is really far ahead or really close in. If you want to book in the middle like a normal person would, be a little bit more flexible with your destinations. But hotels. The fan favorite is going to be the Hyatt program. And if you have Chase points or Bilt points, we can talk about Bilt in a little bit. If you have Chase points or Bilt points, you can transfer them over to Hyatt. Hyatt is currently the fan favorite of points people because it's chart-based instead of revenue-based. So if it's a category 6 hotel, which is fairly high-end, it's going to be a certain number of points or within a range. For a category 8, it would be 40, 45,000, maybe 35,000 points. For a category 2, usually it's going to be 8,000 points a night. So it's pretty predictable how much it's going to cost. And that's how you can get a lot of outsized value if it would normally be very expensive with cash, but not too bad with points. Most normal people, probably looking at Marriott, Hilton, IHG, which is your Holiday Inn or something like that. Those are revenue-based. So it's not 1-to-1, but generally, as the cash price increases, the points price will increase. So it's hard to get that outsized value of, it's always just going to be 15,000 points. So maybe you're going to get a really good deal by paying points instead of money. So that's how I would start with finding some hotels and finding hotel deals. I would start with Hyatt. It's the fan favorite. We also cover this in our free points 101 course, geobreezetravel.com/free course. If people are really confused and they're like, what is going on right now? How do I make any of these redemptions? We have a free course that walks everybody through it. Just Google GeoBreeze Travel free course or go to geobreezetravel.com/free course and you can download it from there.
Okay, awesome. So this is a lot of points that we're talking about here. Well, first question is, how do we look up these categories of hotels? So let's say I want to go to Paris and I want to do a category 6 hotel. Is there a way that I can specifically find those hotels, or should I just be looking for Hyatts?
I would just start with going to Hyatt.com. And by this point, you've already gotten your flights booked. Mm-hmm. So just go to Hyatt.com, type in your city, the dates that you're going to be in that city, and then click search. It'll tell you how many points. It doesn't really even matter what category it is. It just tells you how many points you need. If you are looking for, okay, what's the best category 4 hotel in Europe that you want to use your points on, then you can just Google Hyatt category 4 hotels. It'll give you an entire list. You can filter it by region.
Oh, so this is like these hotels are categorizing themselves this way? Or are you saying that
Hyatt corporate is categorizing them?
Nice. And do the other hotels use the same kind of category levels?
They don't, because a lot of them are more revenue based, where it's just more so based off of if it's expensive on cash, it'll be more expensive with points. So it's harder to get deals that way. Okay.
So then how much do you typically spend, and not necessarily you specifically, but a person spend? I mean, I'm doing the math on these points. We're talking hundreds of thousands of points just for a few days at a hotel, or, a week, however long we don't want to do this. But you're talking like 45,000 points a night, if I heard you right, for the Hyatt. So we're talking hundreds of thousands of points for the hotel. I'm assuming hundreds of thousands of points for these flights. So we're talking millions of points. How much are we spending in order to rack up enough points for one trip?
So my expenses last year for 2024, I think it was somewhere around 400,000 total for the year for business plus personal. Super rough estimate. Most people do not need to spend that much. Especially if you're a beginner, you get a big influx of points just from the sign-up bonus on a new card. You're probably going to need to get new cards anyway. So there's a couple of floating offers out there for Amex Platinum where if you spend $20,000, you get 200,000 points or 250,000 points. There was one for the Chase Sapphire Preferred. It's expired now, but it was 100,000 points for $4,000 or $5,000 or $6,000 of minimum spend. Similar offers exist for Capital One. So you can get your first few influxes of hundreds of thousands of points at a time just by getting those 3 or so credit cards over the course of the year. Plan out your trips for a year, probably less than that, and then you'll have enough points to get at least the flights covered in round trip business class for a couple of people. If you have 6 children and you're taking all of them with you in business class, it'll be a little bit more challenging for a couple of reasons. One, you're just going to need to get a lot more points. They can't get their own credit cards, and it's going to be hard to get award space. But if it's just a couple who are traveling, or maybe a family where the children are already over 18 and everybody can get their own credit cards and sign-up bonuses, everybody can fund their own tickets pretty quickly that way.
So how often are you getting new cards?
Me personally, less than people would think. I probably get 1 or 2 per year. Some people are going like every month, getting more and more cards, just because sign-up bonuses, you do get that big influx of points. I would say start that way in the beginning, where you're just getting 2 or 3 cards in your first year to get those sign-up bonuses. But after that, if you're a business owner or high cash flow professional who's spending a gazillion dollars per year anyway, or even just like $100,000, $200,000 a year on business and personal expenses, you don't want to constantly have to move all of your bills from credit card 1 to credit card 2, and then 2 months later, you got a new credit card. Let's use all of your expenses again. You want to have a more long-term, sustainable strategy for what cards to put which categories of expenses on. So I do 1 or 2 per year for most business owners after they've worked with us for a year or so. Probably just 2, maybe 4 per year at most, but they don't have to be going through what we call aparamas, where they're constantly opening more and more cards. There's better, more sustainable strategies out there, especially if you already have an established business.
Yeah, I mean, I'm exactly what you're describing, where I got tired of it. So I've got, one primary card that we use, and I don't think about it ever, and that's where I kind of just defaulted into cash back. So I like that. It sounds like if you're spending enough money, at a certain point, the sign-up bonus just isn't worth the headache. It's kind of what I'm hearing. Like $400,000 a year, you're going on 3 trips. And that's a lot of trips too. So even if we just downsize that to like a family that wants to go on one trip a year, or what is that, like 130,000 can kind of get them one of these trips that you're talking about?
It would depend on if they want to go business class, if they want to go to Europe or Asia. But another good rule of thumb would be if you want to fly business class, I would budget 10,000 points per hour of lay flat time. So let's say that someone's in Chicago and they want to go to Germany and it's an 8-hour flight one way. I would budget 80,000 points for a one-way business class flight. And so if it's a family of 3, you would just do 80,000 times 2 for each round trip would be 160,000. And then you multiply that by 3, that would be 480,000 for all 3 people to fly round trip in business class from Chicago to Germany. 480,000 points should get you there.
Okay, and if we have 5x multiple for ads, I think that's what you said earlier, I spend $100,000 on ads, 4x. So $125,000 on ads is going to get me 500,000 points. There's my trip for my family. And that's not that, that's 10 grand a month, which is not a crazy amount for ads, depending on the size of the business.
Yes. Caveat that the Amex Business Gold 4X does cap out at $50,000 per year. But if you had multiple of those cards where like all 3 people are in the business or you're using some other combination of strategies, yes. But roughly that is how the math would work out.
Okay, so that's something to think about when we're getting cards is what's the max? And if we have pretty stable expenses, we can anticipate, we're going to max out the points for the ads. And would that be a reason?
I think about it differently.
Okay.
I would think about it a little bit differently because you're going to get some sign-up bonuses, first of all. So if you're getting this Amex Business Gold card, you've got 100,000 points just from opening the card. So that already takes care of more than one person one way. You're not spending just on that card. You probably have other expenses too. So maybe you get the Amex Business Gold and then also a Capital One Venture X for business, where you're getting 2 points per dollar on miscellaneous other expenses like software subscriptions or stuff with your business. So by putting together a strategy of 2 or 3 cards, you can easily fund 3 people flying business class round trip to Europe.
Nice. And that doesn't, these numbers, you don't have to be a huge business to be spending $125,000 or $150,000 on stuff each year. That's not a massive business. So if you're strategizing this right, you just got a trip for your family almost for free. 90% off. That's great. You just figure out ways to use credit cards for stuff that you might not have otherwise. Is that part of it as well? Like, how do I use a credit card for this expense?
Yeah, there's a lot of expenses that sometimes people don't realize they can earn points for. One would be taxes. So people are sometimes like, I don't want to put taxes on a credit card because there's the 3% fee. But if you're getting a big sign-up bonus, like let's say that you're opening an Amex Business Platinum and you got an offer for 200,000 points for $20,000 if you put $20,000 on the card. Well, maybe you have a $20,000 tax bill. And so you're like, do I really want to do this? Because then I have an extra, $600 in fees that I have to pay. But if you're going to get 200,000 points with Amex, and for each of those points, you can get at least 2 cents per point out of it. If you're leveraging correct transfer partners, my team can probably get more like 5. So what is that math? If you're getting 2 cents per point on it, out of 200,000 points, that's $4,000. Maybe if you're really good at points transfers and finding deals, you can get up to $10,000 off of that. I would say it's worth paying the $600 fee to get somewhere between $4,000 and $10,000 of luxury travel off of one credit card sign-up bonus. So taxes are a big one where you can get a big sign-up bonus just from doing your estimated tax payments. You do that by going to pay1040.com. That's where you can process credit card payments. Another one is rent. So not commercial rent, but if anybody is based in New York or San Francisco or somewhere where you don't own your home and you are instead renting, definitely look into the Built credit card, because a lot of people don't know that they can earn a lot of points just by paying their rent. Even if your landlord doesn't accept credit cards, Built can give you a bank routing number, an account number, where you just pay it like a normal checking account, and then it'll come out of that Built checking account. They'll see how much came out for rent, and then they'll charge it to your credit card that you have with Built, and then you'll earn points that way. Or they can just mail a paper check to your landlord.
Okay, so if they can mail
You get points
checks
for that.
and they give you a routing number, could you pay for anything with that, or do they have limits on could you pay a mortgage or something else, or do they have limits on that?
Mortgage is coming. By the time this airs, mortgage might be out already. But yes, people have very, very much been asking for the same process for mortgage. Right now, it's just rent. And I think people oftentimes do HOA fees with this as well. But that is another category where people didn't realize they can earn points just by paying for home.
So we've got, almost once that's in the mix, that's pretty much everything can be generating points. Groceries, of course, pretty much all personal expenses can be put on a credit card. We've now got mortgage/rent that's going to generate points. Is there like a fee for what is this website Built? What is it?
Built, BILT. There is no fee for paying your rent or soon your mortgage with their program. So you just swipe the Built card or enter your Built card number into your apartment portal, or have Built mail a check or do the ACH payment. There's no fees for paying your rent.
So it's just BILT, like .com, something like that?
Yes.
And okay, so now basically all personal expenses are generating points. And then business, you said commercial, real estate, you can't. But how about employees? Is there a way to pay employees with something that generates points?
Yes. So most of my employees, all of my employees are contractors. I just pay them through PayPal, and then I hook up a credit card behind the scenes on PayPal. I pay the 3% fee each time. So I just have them add an extra 3% for processing charges on the invoices they send me every month. But then those are charged to my credit card. So that's how I handle contractor payments. There is a way to handle regular payroll as well. It's called Zil Money, ZIL space money, not Zelle, Zil. They're kind of going through some tech refreshes right now, but if you pay your employees through Gusto or any of those other payroll processing, then what their software does is it lets you hook up a credit card to the back end. Again, you pay about a 3% fee, but then you are paying payroll on your credit card. So you can print a lot of points that way as well.
That's huge. So you can hook that up to we use Gusto. So you can hook that up to Gusto. So that's, there's so much value in this conversation. Not only let's get the right credit cards and then get a trip, but this right here is going to be tons of points between rent/mortgage and paying employees. That's biggest personal expense and now biggest business expense. So Zil Money. And then do these have good, you talked about being able to transfer the points in the right way or to the right place. Does the Built and the Zil Money, do those have good transfers?
Oh, Built is the best at transfers because they often do transfer bonuses of 100%. So most of the time it's a 1-to-1 transfer ratio. So let's say with Capital One, you can move 1,000 Capital One points over to Air Canada, and then it'll turn into 1,000 Air Canada miles, or British Airways or Air France or whatever airline. But with Built, oftentimes they will do rent day specials where for just 1 day per month, they'll pick an airline where it'll be rent day transfer bonus to Air France. So instead of 1-to-1, it's 1-to-2. If you move over 10,000 points over to Air France, suddenly it becomes 200,000 points. So that example we were talking about earlier where maybe somebody wants to go from Chicago over to Germany, it's going to cost 80,000 points per person one way in business class. Maybe not. Maybe it's going to cost half that if you rack up a whole bunch of Built points and then you are able to take advantage of a transfer bonus. Then maybe you only need half of that many points So there's a lot of different offers and techniques that you can stack. So the math does not work out to be like, I need to spend $1 million per year to get 1 million points. No, there's so many different ways to bring that number down.
But you're thinking ahead though. So you know generally where you want to go. And then if you're using Built, you can kind of wait for the right deal and then just transfer at the right time. Or
you can wait until Built has a transfer bonus and plan where you want to go based off of that transfer bonus. Especially for people who can't decide where they want to go on vacation anyway. Just wait for the next transfer bonus. And if they're like, it's with Virgin Atlantic, then you're just like, who wants to go to England? Cheap points, cheap flights. So
if you're open to that seems like just a game changer in the whole conversation. If you're open to going somewhere cool, but don't really care where it is, then that's going to make it easier to buy your flight in the first place. And that's going to make it easier to do these transfers.
Absolutely.
All right.
One other thing I wanted to mention. So we talked about like how you can earn points by spending on personal expenses and then also with business expenses. But for people who are like, I barely spend money, I'm very much a saver instead of a spender, what do I do? There is a special bank account called Bask Bank, #not sponsored. But instead of earning interest on this savings account, you earn American Airlines miles. So it doesn't even fluctuate like interest rates normally do. You just get 2 American Airlines miles per dollar that you save per year, and they pay it out every month. So let's say that you have $100,000 in this savings account. That's just passive 200,000 American Airlines miles that show up over the course of the year. You get 200,000 divided by 12 deposited per month. If you don't have $100,000, where you just want to put $10,000 into this savings account with Bask Bank, then you get 20,000 American Airlines miles just from saving your money. You don't even have to spend money to get all of these points. So that's another good trick as well for business owners who have to have a lot of cash kept liquid, maybe in like a high yield savings account. If you're like, I'd rather get American Airlines miles rather than interest payments, then Bask Bank is a pretty good way to go.
Awesome. So are there certain airlines you like more than others?
For flying the physical product or for transferring my points to find good points deals?
Let's go both.
As far as my favorite airlines to fly for physical product, I am a Singapore Airlines girly. I love Singapore Airlines. I love their menu. The service is always so good. It's so consistent. It's my favorite airport in the world. It's just the best. So they're one of my favorites. They're a little bit more expensive for flight deals, but if you are flying into Asia and you want to go somewhere like Thailand or Bali or somewhere where there's not a direct flight from the United States, looking through SingaporeAirlines.com gives you a pretty good shot at finding good flight deals. Again, slightly more expensive than a lot of the other airlines, but especially if you have to find like 6 seats on the same airplane because you have a larger family and you want business class for everybody, Singapore Airlines is great. Some of my others that I loved, Cathay Pacific, based in Hong Kong. The airline and the first class product was good, but what I loved was their lounge in Hong Kong. It was so nice. So they have like a restaurant where all of it's included and you're just ordering amazing food. They have the best cheesecake of my life. They have this fancy bar area. They have a spa. You can't make reservations in advance. Fills up very fast, but they have a spa. It doesn't look like an airport lounge either. I always describe it as, it looks like a very fancy like summer home for a celebrity that you're just kind of invited to a party. So those are a couple of my favorites, are Singapore Airlines and then also Cathay Pacific. Everyone loves Emirates. It's the one that does well on my Instagram whenever I'm like, this is what Emirates first class or business class looks like. People are always wowed by them. Qatar Q Suites is another one that people really love. It's also a very fancy product. But as far as airlines that I like to book through for good flight deals, American Airlines is really, really good because they tack on positioning flights for free. So, for example, you could fly from I did Las Vegas through Los Angeles through Sydney into Melbourne, all for 80,000 points. You could get from Kansas City through Chicago, through Japan, into the Philippines for 70,000 points per person one way in business class for that entire thing. So American Airlines are great.
So when you say they tack on the positioning flights for free, you mean you book the long leg and then they're like, we'll just get you to this airport? Or what do you mean by they tack it on for free?
Usually it would cost extra. So let's say you wanted to go from Chicago over to Japan. That would be 70,000 points. But then you're like, well, what if I also just wanted to book this from Kansas City all the way to Manila? It's the same price if you just cross the ocean versus you have another flight on the United States side and you have another flight on the Asia side. It's still the same price. So those other like end flights to go from your actual home airport to your actual destination, they're not going to charge you extra for that.
So you don't have to like game the system for this. You learned this by trying to game the system. It sounds like by like trying to book the long flight and then the positioning and you're like, oh, it's the same price. And that's just how they do it. They just don't charge extra.
As long as there is availability. Because sometimes like if that Kansas City to Chicago leg is sold out, then you have to book that one as a positioning flight separately with Southwest.com or something like that, like we discussed earlier. But if you can find availability for everything, then it doesn't cost any extra with American Airlines, which is why I love them. We did this with Las Vegas through Los Angeles through Doha into Egypt. Same price as just the Los Angeles to Doha leg.
Wow. And how's the American Airlines business class experience on that long leg?
Not great. So you don't use American Airlines to book on American Airlines' own plane. This is where the partner airlines really come into play. So when we did that Egypt trip, Los Angeles to Doha, we're not flying that in American Airlines. We're flying that on Qatar, which is a much nicer airline than American Airlines. When I was looking at that Kansas City over to Manila route, Chicago over to Japan, that's not going to be with American Airlines. That's going to be with Japan Airlines. So much nicer.
Do you have to like book that intentionally, or is it just that American Airlines doesn't fly international and they've partnered with better folks?
It's that when you find that flight deal, they will tell you who the flight is operated by, and you can oftentimes find that the flight is operated by a partner.
So you're looking for the partners that you like, even if you're going through American Airlines website.
Yes. If you're going through American Airlines website, it'll tell you who the operating carrier is. And I get more excited if the operating carrier is not American Airlines, because while their point system is fantastic and you find lots of great deals through there, not my favorite flight product to actually physically be on. I'll do it. It's not bad. Sometimes it's bad. It's a lay flat seat. So we flew them from Los Angeles over to Sydney. That one was operated by American Airlines. We flew them from Dallas over to Korea, operated by American Airlines. Definitely not the nicest business class I've been on, but I still love their points because you find so many good deals on there. Alaska Airlines also. They have so many good deals on the Alaska Airlines website.
And are they using partners that you like as well?
Yes. One that's still on my list is Starlux. That one's a Taiwanese airline that I still want to fly. I've booked Japan Airlines through Alaska as well. You can book Condor Airlines over to Germany. We booked South America through them. You can book Latam through them. Alaska has such a diverse range of different partners that you can book through their website. So they're also a fantastic one to look into as well. Those two are much, much more valuable, I found, than United and especially Delta. Delta deals are not good.
Okay, good to know. So what's one of your favorite trips that you've been on? You told us about this Australian Japan trip. What's another one that you've really enjoyed?
So that one to the Middle East that we went on, it was about a year and a half ago. At this point, we flew, it was the one where we flew into Egypt. And then from there, flew Emirates first class from Egypt over to Dubai. Then we flew Turkish business class from Dubai into Turkey, Istanbul. Loved Istanbul. Fantastic. The food there does not miss. It's probably one of my favorite food destinations now. Really, really enjoyed Turkey. And then we flew British Airways business class from Istanbul through London back into Las Vegas. And Intra-Europe business class, not that good. So the Istanbul to London leg was not particularly special, but the London to Las Vegas leg is much better. So, and they're both operated by British Airways. So it's just something to keep in mind that there are going to be different experiences for different business class products, even if it's both business class technically and both operated by the same airline. Turkish Airlines, they have new business class and old business class, and the catering is the same. My favorite thing about Turkish Airlines is the food, but it makes a world of difference when you're on the new planes with the nicer seats versus the old model.
So you're going at least business class even on the short flights. So if business class isn't offered, you'd go first class?
Well, on the short flight. So you mean like Istanbul over to London?
Yeah, or Las Vegas to Los Angeles.
If it was included in the ticket already, then yes, we would. If we had to buy it separately, I'd probably purchase it in economy. So with Istanbul through London into Las Vegas, all of that was booked as one ticket with American Airlines miles that just went through London. With the Las Vegas through Los Angeles through Doha into Cairo, again, American Airlines was tacking on the positioning flights for free. So I was like, we'll just do the positioning flights that way. And
when they tack on the positioning flights for free, are they doing it in first class since you're getting a business class over the ocean?
Yeah, it's domestic first class.
Okay.
But sometimes it won't be included. Like we flew Dallas over to Korea and they didn't offer the Las Vegas to Dallas leg. They were like, there's no openings for that one the day before or the morning of your flight. So we can't do that one. So that one we just had to buy separately with Spirit Airlines or something.
So you're just getting there. Like however we can get there, we'll do it.
Correct.
Awesome. So tell me, you've got on your Instagram and on your YouTube, you've got tons of tips. And some of them we've talked about here, but tell me about some of these like favorite kind of secrets. You know, one of the things you say is that the internet and Instagram is an illusion. Tell me about what does that mean?
Those are two different questions. So let's go over the best secrets.
That's not
first.
A secret. Okay. So we'll start with the internet's an illusion, and then we'll go into some other tips.
Okay. So if you want to do the illusion thing first, a lot of people follow a lot of travel influencers. Once you follow one, you've like followed 20. And normal people who are just like consuming this content are like, everyone is always on a business class flight without me. Every week, people are on business class flights, and I'm taking one vacation a year. What's going on? So here's what's going on with the internet. Just because we're posting constantly about travel does not mean we are constantly traveling. Anybody who is in business, even travel influencer business, knows that you should probably batch tasks. So whenever I'm traveling, I'm taking tons of video, tons of photo, and it's being released over multiple months. So just because you're seeing travel videos every single day from somebody's account doesn't mean they're traveling every single day. They probably just got 3 months of content out of one week trip. So that's just one thing to keep in mind is the frequency of how much people are actually able to do this. Also, if you are following people like me who take 2 or 3 trips per year, and you're following 20 points influencers, then on average, it feels like someone is going on a trip every single week because your eyeballs are processing like 60 different trips going on per year, and we're all reusing content anyway. So that's just something to keep in mind is we're not all constantly traveling all the time. The internet just kind of makes it seem like it. Also, this is literally our full-time jobs for a lot of us who do this. And I think people who have normal W-2 jobs try to compare themselves to Instagram influencers if they're like, well, how come I'm not generating tons of points every single month? Some people generate their points from referral links. I don't. Mine's mostly through business expenses. But some people they'll be like, you should get this credit card so you can travel like me, use this link. And they could get points from that. Or they're getting affiliate money from that. And that's how they're funding their lifestyle. A lot of people just have rich spouses. Let's just say that. Some people where they're like, oh, I have 4 children and look at us in business class all the time and I'm taking all of these trips. Doesn't necessarily mean they took all their children on all their trips. Sometimes, like, one of the parents will just go on a whole bunch of trips and then one will include the children. And when your brain is processing both of those at the same time, you're trying to do the math of like, how did they take a family of 6 on 4 different trips in business class this year? They didn't. They maybe had 6 people on one business class trip, and then the person who runs the account went on 3 other trips. So just kind of level setting of like, what is it that my eyeballs are processing on the internet? And is that actually what's going on in reality? It's probably not. So I like to give that disclaimer often because people start doing math like you've been doing on this podcast of like, you would need so many points and to spend so much money to be able to like fund this lifestyle, when really that's not always what's going on. Also, sometimes people just pay for flights. It's a novel concept, but people forget this on the internet. People are like, every single thing has to be done with points. Like once you've discovered points, you can never go back to paying for flights. We still do. Like if there's just not a good points deal or there's a really good cash deal where I might want to save my points for a future flight, sometimes you never know. Maybe they just paid for that flight or that hotel room.
All right.
So,
Well, that's
internet's
helpful.
an illusion.
Just seeing reality through this, the rose-colored glasses online. One of the things that you talk about is how the pros use Google Flights. Help me with this, because I use Google Flights.
This is slightly related to how to find points flights as well, which is if you can be very flexible with where you're going, if you can search for multiple airports at the same time, where instead of just saying, I want to get from Denver over to Tokyo, maybe you're searching, I want to get from Denver or Los Angeles or Phoenix or Seattle or San Francisco, and you search for 5 airports where you'd be okay flying from at a time, you're much more likely to find flight deals that way. Or if you are flexible on where you go, you can type in entire continents into Google Flights, where you say, I want to fly into Europe or I want to fly into Asia on these dates. It'll say, okay, like there's a good deal over to Turkey. There's a good deal over to Italy. There's a good deal over to Warsaw. Do you like any of these cities? So kind of similar concept of if you can be a little bit more flexible on where it is you'll land and just make a vacation out of wherever the deal takes you, you can find much, much better deals that way.
So then you're using Google Flights to find things that are already on sale, basically. And then you're going to go over to the platforms that you use to pay with the points, or do you? No, you're going to use Google Flights with the points.
That Google Flight trick is for if you're that Google Flight trick is if you're trying to find cheap cash flights. If you're trying to take the same concept with finding good points deals of I want to get from the US over to other continent, Australia, Asia, Europe. The tool that I recommend is called Seats.Aero. It's in that blueprint video. If you go to YouTube and search GeoBreeze Travel Blueprint, or really anything on GeoBreeze Travel, we have a ton of tutorials for how to use Seats.Aero because it gets a little bit technical, but that's the main tool that I use for finding good points flights if I am flexible with, let's just get from the US over the ocean in LA flat seat.
So how often does a good cash deal correspond with a good points deal? Are they totally separate, or is there often some overlap?
I tend to think they're totally separate. I could be wrong on that just because I don't play with the cash deals that much. There are people who specialize in just cash deals where they're like, you can fly over to Europe for $500 in business class or over to Asia. From what I hear, those happen most of the time because of currency conversion issues where there's a tech glitch and it was supposed to be in dollars, but they priced it in like Vietnamese currency. And so now it's coming out at $300 instead of $3,000. That happens sometimes with different aggregators. I don't tend to book those very often just because I focus more on points deals, but that's an entire like separate school of how to find deals is the mistake fares and the cheap cash deals using Google Flights.
Okay. All right. So what are some of the, you're a travel expert. I mean, it's definitely far better. Like I said, I haven't gone over the seas for like 10 years. So what are some of the things you travel with? You on your Instagram, you talk about what you put in your bag. Give us some tips there.
Compression socks.
All right.
Those are good. Don't get blood clots. If you're
just for the plane, or do you wear them more than that?
Just for the plane, for me. So yes, bring compression socks. What do I use? I am team carry-on. So even if we are away for 2 weeks at a time, I'm not checking a bag. Maybe on the way back I will, but I just have the away standard carry-on. I have a backpack that was gifted to me from Nordace. I have a purse. It's like a leather purse, crossbody, that was gifted to me from Crea. And I just use those. Packing cubes are a game changer. Always use packing cubes. Just to keep everything nice and organized. I'm trying to think of other things that I always travel with as well. Converters, obviously. I'll travel with my laptop, with my phone. For my phone, we use Google Fi because that way we don't have to deal with eSIMs or anything.
So Google Fi is international?
Yeah, it's international. So we use that. The credit card that I use most often when traveling abroad is Chase Sapphire Preferred, just because it doesn't have any foreign transaction fees. Amex works as well for no foreign transaction fees, and there are a few others that work. But I found that Visa and MasterCard tend to be more regularly accepted abroad, whereas a lot of places will turn down American Express because they have higher interchange fees.
Okay. One of the things you talk about is when your flight is delayed, there's a Department of Transportation, I don't know, is it a law now that allows you that basically says you need to get compensated based on the delay time. I find this difficult to believe. So is this something we can actually, like, you talked about telling people at the service counter, hey, the Department of Transportation says I get $200 for this. Like, walk me through this.
The skit works better if you're pretending to talk to somebody at the counter. In real life, it works better to chat support with the app, with the airline that you've booked through. It just doesn't look as good.
Don't go up to the counter.
I mean, you could.
Okay.
Really, with the counter, it depends on what you want out of the situation. Do you want them to just like fix your problem and get you rebooked on the next flight, or do you want money? Because usually you have to choose one or the other. If you're just like, I just want my money back, I'm on Google Flights, like that place is selling it for cheaper anyway. Like, you're not going to get me on another flight until tomorrow. Just give me my money back. I'm going to go book myself a flight. That's option one. If you're just going to problem solve your own. If you want them to fix it for you, person at the counter can help. But usually I would say double dip, be in line to talk to someone at the counter to get booked on the next flight, but also be texting somebody on the app being like, hey, I'm on AA flight 072. We just got delayed. I need to get to Dallas. What's the next flight you can get me on? Chat support is usually going to be better because they are less overwhelmed than the person at the gate who has a lot of people screaming at them. Also, if you have any elite status or you are in business class anyway, where you have access to a lounge, don't be in that same line as Gen Pop. Go to the lounge, like the AA lounge or the Delta lounge or whatever you're flying. Those customer service agents can get you rebooked on another flight, and they are usually more senior. They're usually a little bit more well-versed in what they can and can't do. So, and you're going to have a lesser line that way. So that's another tip, is go into the lounge and talk to that person to get your flight fixed for you if you're trying to get booked on a new flight. Like, obviously, if you booked an international business class, amazing lay flat deal, you don't want just your money back because that was a really good deal. You want to be able to experience that and be like, what's the next flight you can get me on? Like, get me to Japan.
Yeah.
If it's a domestic flight and you're like, I will rebook myself on another airline, just give me my money back, then you can do that in the app or the counter. Where people go wrong with this a lot of times is they think they can have both, where they want to be booked on a new flight and also get like fully compensated and all of this. There are rare instances where you can do that, but usually you have to decide, what do you want? Do you want your money back, or do you want them to solve your problem?
So if we're talking, because the biggest place where I've seen delays is airlines like American on a layover, where you get to the first place, you're not where you live, right? You can't just go home, and oh man, we canceled this flight. That's happened to folks when to visit us multiple times. So they're still going to get here. They're going to go get a hotel that night. They're going to come the next day. What kind of negotiation can happen in that kind of a scenario?
So in that scenario, they still want to get to their destination.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I would start asking for things where you're like, hey, what's the next flight you can get me on? Oh my God, it's not until tomorrow. Okay, well, since it's your guys' fault, can you get me a hotel? Can you get me an Uber to that hotel? Can I get some meal vouchers? You're not asking for money back at that point. You probably could, but it's going to be easier to just have them fill out that, to just do expenses. So very important in this situation to keep receipts out of everything. Like make a little folder of photos on your phone and just start taking photos of like, I paid this much for Uber. This is how much food cost due to this delay. This is how much the hotel cost due to this delay. Because in order to get money, they don't just start like giving out money right then and there. There's an approval process, kind of like an insurance claim where you have to submit paperwork. So get all your paperwork together. Also, if you have any credit cards that have good travel protections, also a good time to contact them to be like, hey, Chase, I booked this flight through your credit card. My Chase Sapphire Preferred comes with trip protections. And I would do this through chat. Be like, can you tell me what I'm entitled to and what receipts I'm going to need to fill out later in order to get reimbursed for stuff? And they'll walk you through everything that you need.
So is it easier to get reimbursed through the credit card or through the airline? If I'm going to be collecting receipts either way, does it matter? Can I get reimbursed through both?
You could. I would say you're going to find out faster from the airline. So depends on the airline. I hear Delta's a little bit more generous than American Airlines with these. People who fly Delta, they just chat Delta whenever something breaks. They're like, my TV broke on my flight. And they're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Here's 2,000 points or like 3,000 points or something like that. Whereas American Airlines, they're like, that sucks for you. And I'm an American Airlines elite. So that's usually the boat that I'm in. So yeah, the Delta people, apparently you can just get a few points here and there, knowing that those points are not worth nearly as much. It's always worth it to just chat and be like, hey, this thing happened. Is there anything that you can do? Like a loyal customer just really was disappointed that it wasn't up to par with how service normally goes. One category where I hear you can get quite a few points for this is if you have any kind of eating restrictions, like vegetarian, vegan, halal, kosher, celiac, anything like that. Always order the special meal, but then pack yourself meal bars or protein bars or something because they're going to forget your extra meal. They are not going to have a celiac friendly meal for you on that plane. So then you can just be like, hey, I filled out the form saying I needed a celiac meal, but all they gave me was a banana. That's not a comparable dinner compared to what everybody else got. Can I get some points for this? And they'll be like, I'm so sorry that we didn't accommodate your special needs request. People tend to get a lot of points that way. If you are going to do this, just make sure you've packed your own meal because like they can't do anything at that point. If they don't have your special needs meal, they can't conjure it.
Right. You're on a plane. You're locked in a box.
You're on a plane.
Okay. How do you get access to the lounges? Is it just buying the business class flight and that gets you the access, or is there another way?
There's two main ways. So one is business class flights where you are booking it with points or maybe a good cash deal or something. You'll get lounges, or you'll get access to lounges that way. The other one is through different credit cards. So the premium credit cards, the ones that are like more than $300, usually will come with some kind of lounge access. Venture X is probably the best one for beginners at this point. It's $395. It gets you lounge access to the Capital One lounges and a lot of the Priority Pass lounges because there's different lounge networks of which one, you don't get access to all of them broadly. So Capital One Venture X is a good one. Chase Sapphire Reserve gets you access to lounges, but there's rumors that they're increasing their annual fee to like $700 some, which would be very sad if they did that. Amex Business Platinum also has a $695 annual fee right now. That one gets you access to MX Centurion lounges and Priority Pass and a few other ones as well. There's other lounge cards too, like American Airlines, World Elite, MasterCard, $550 gets you access to the American Airlines Admirals Club. So I would say this one, for what card you should get, depends on what your home airport is and what lounge you're probably going to use most of the time anyway. So go to Lounge Buddy. It's a website. Look up what different lounges are in your airport, or go to Google Lounge Review and then look up what different airport lounges you have access to in your airport, and let that determine what credit cards you should get if you're frequenting lounges.
Awesome. So tell me about, you've got, this is a lot of stuff. So let's say I'm already busy running my business, but I've got a bunch of points, or I'm about to have a bunch of points because I followed the tips in this conversation. I don't want to think about how I'm going to get over to Singapore or wherever. What do you do to help folks with this?
So we can do a few different things. I would say start with just telling us about what it is you're trying to do. Go to geobreezetravel.com/request. You can let us know if you already have some points, when you're trying to go on your trip, where you're trying to go on your trip. We'll have somebody reach out. We prepare one of these tutorials for free every week anyway. So like everybody who requests it, we just pick one every week to prepare in our newsletter. So you might be the lucky one where we'll just prepare your request for free anyway. But for every single person who fills out that form, we'll reach out and be like, okay, here's what your next tips are. Here's what some options are in case you want to work with us one-on-one, or if you just want to order like a made-to-order personalized tutorial, or if you just want to wait and see if yours gets picked and prepared for the newsletter. Just go to geobreezetravel.com/request and we can help you from there.
Okay. What are some of the services I might, be able to pay you for?
Sure. If you already have a lot of points and you have pretty high spend, one-on-one consulting tends to be pretty good, where if you're just like, I don't really want to do it on my own, or if you're like, I just need like the fast track, like immersive, teach me how to do all this and download it into my brain in the next 6 months, one-on-one consulting we can do. We have a course where it has group coaching, and then you also have access to a bunch of recorded material for how to find your own flight deals, different creative ways for how to earn points, because there's a deep iceberg for how to earn points. That one's not always available. We do cohorts, so we release it a couple times a year. It's called the Points Accelerator. If you want to be on the waitlist, you can go to geobreezetravel.com/waitlist for that. Otherwise, if you're like, I just want to dip my toe in, see if the teaching style is good for me, our YouTube channel has tons of tutorials. It's free. And then also, we have a Patreon where we do group coaching every month for open forum. Any questions you want to come in with, it's $5 to join, $10 if you want the recording afterwards as well.
Nice. That's awesome. I mean, you've shared a ton of resources in this. We're going to put all of them in the show notes, so it's easy to just scroll down and click, regardless of what platform you are on. This has been a fantastic conversation. I think you're going to change the way that I pay for pretty much everything personally, and because I've got a personal cashback card too, because I was like, yeah, same reasons. I don't want to have to think about this. But it sounds like if I just follow your advice here, just with what I'm already doing, I can rack up a whole lot of points. So you're going to be changing a lot of how I pay for things. So appreciate all the time and insights today. So thanks for being here, Julia.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Clear Brand Marketing Podcast. If you need help with your website or marketing, go to clearbrand.com. You can schedule a free strategy call with one of our consultants, or take advantage of our free resources to help you write, design, or implement a better website and marketing.